In this video, we're going to learn how to use Blender. Blender is a 3D animating, sculpting, modeling, painting, basically anything to do with 3D meshes. It's a software for that. It's free. I'll have a link to download in the description if you don't already have it. There's tutorial videos on YouTube. It's not that hard to download, like downloading any other software. But if you have trouble, there's tutorial videos on YouTube. I'll link a good one in the description down below. Let's create our mesh, our first mesh, and just get used to the Blender layout. This tutorial series is just for people who haven't used Blender before. Even if you use another 3D modeling software, this tutorial is for people who haven't used Blender before. Blender is very different from other 3D modeling softwares. It's basically all the pay stuff in a free version. Let's hit General right here under New File, and we can have our cube, our first cube that we've ever made. We didn't really make it. It's a default. But here we go. We come with a light. A light up here. We're going to come with the light, the cube, and the camera. To select something, you're just going to click it. The light may be harder to select because, it's smaller. But you can just click it to select it. You can also drag it holding the left mouse button. Drag it, and in this kind of grayish square, we can let go, and now everything is selected. You can see what is selected here in the right. You can see in our collection, it says camera, cube, light, and that's what's selected. It's also going to be kind of orange or another color, depends on what you're using. To see that it's selected. To unselect everything, you can just go to some empty space and just left click. And now everything is unselected. Now what we're going to do is we can go into our cube and we want to get a different side of it. To do that, we're going to hold down the middle mouse button and drag our mouse around. You cannot zoom in and out with the scroll wheel while doing this. You have to let go and then use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. If you're using a Mac or a trackpad, head up here to the top right corner and move around with this circle. You can change the view of the cube just by doing this. It's just very simple. You can also use the number pad. Now, I don't have a number pad, so I can't use the keyboard shortcuts. But it's going to change your view of the cube by hitting your number pad keyboard shortcuts all the way from 0 to 9. 0 is going to be what's shown in your camera. And then 1 to 9 is going to be a different view of the cube, like right here, right here, right here, just different views. Now, as you can see, there's some lines. We have a red line and a green line. Well, your red line is going to be the x-axis, and your greenish line is going to be the y-axis. Now, the z-axis is also there, but it's invisible. Right here in the top corner, it's the color blue. So there's your z-axis. You cannot see it. Now let's get started with moving our cube around. So let's select it by left clicking or dragging it with our left mouse button. And what we're going to do is that we're going to hit G on the keyboard. Now what we're going to do is move our mouse around, and our cube is moving too. Our light's moving too because I selected it. Let me just select my cube. There we go. You hit G, you can move your cube around. Something else you can do is you can head over to the left side and hit the move button. As you can see, you can just move it like this. Move it at free will. You're going to do this if you want to just kind of move it at a certain, like, if you want to move it on the X and Y axis, but not the Z axis, or the Z and Y axis, but not the X axis. It's kind of complicated. You'll hit this left side to do that. Let's just select it with G. As you can see, we can move it around freely. If you want to move it coordinated to a specific axis, you're going to hit the letter on the keyboard for the axis you want to use. So if we want to go on the y-axis, we're going to hit Y. As you can see, it's going along the y-axis. We could do that for Z and X. Now, like I said earlier, if you want it to be on the Z and Y-axis, but not the X-axis, what you're going to do is that you're going to hit the color coordinated to the axis you don't want it to go on. So if we don't want it to change on the X-axis, we're going to hit the red button like I just did. As you can see, it's not changing on the x-axis. However, it's moving on the z and y-axis. You can also do that with the y and z-axis. As you can see, it's not moving on our y-axis. It may appear to be doing that, but it's actually just getting smaller. It's going to appear farther away and kind of moved. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to hit Control-Z to undo everything we've done. Okay, that's close enough. Control-Z is undo. It's most like that for any other software. Now what we're going to do is we're going to scale it. We're going to make it larger and make it smaller. You're going to hit S for the keyboard shortcut for scale. I recommend learning your keyboard shortcuts for Blender. They're going to be very helpful. So we're going to hit S, and you can see we're scaling it. The more in you go to the cube, the smaller it's going to get. The farther out you're going to go from the cube, the bigger it's going to get. Right here we have a giant cube. You can just left click and it will stop scaling. You can go back to scaling by hitting the button right here. scale, or you can hit S on your keyboard. As you can see, we're scaling again. If you want to scale on a specific axis, you're going to hit the axis button on your keyboard, kind of like when you were moving. So we could use Z. As you can see, it's going on the Z axis, X, and then Y. Let's kind of make this flat a little bit. There we go. We kind of have a wall. We're just going to call it a wall. How about that? Something else you can do is the annotate tool, and you can kind of just draw in here. If you want to make notes, we can put this as a wall. If you want to like put notes of what it is, or here we can put light. It's not gonna be used that often, but it's just there. Let's Control Z to undo it all. You can also use the measure tool. It's gonna measure certain points. We're gonna highlight this. We're gonna use measure. If it'll let me measure. Okay, here is our measure tool. Where you click, it'll start. Boop. It's not doing it for me because I already clicked over there. But you can measure it. It's gonna be using meters because it's using the metric system. As you can see, the farther we get, the larger it's going to be. Very, very simple. The next thing we're going to learn is rotating. The keyboard shortcut for rotating is R. You can rotate it on a specific axis. Right here, we're using the X-axis. Or we can use the Y-axis and, of course, the Z-axis. So we have our slanted wall. Kind of appears like it's falling down in a certain direction. Kind of like a bookshelf. The next thing we're going to learn is go into different modes. To do this, you can hit here in the top left corner. As you can see, we have different modes and different paint modes. So we have object mode, which is the default mode you're going to be in, the mode we're in right now. You have edit mode, sculpt mode, vertex paint, weight paint, and texture paint. Let's head into edit mode. As you can see here, it turns kind of a different color, and we have more options on the side. I'm not going to get into every option today in this video, but there's some I do want to go over. One thing you want to know is that now you can edit every angle and vertice on the cube or whatever you're using. So we can just drag it. As you can see, it's going to highlight all the angles that appeared. You can also hold shift and select each angle individually that you would like to edit. Now let's move the angles. We can hit G to move. And as you can see, it's moving just those angles. The only angles that are not moving are the ones we did not select. So we're going to move it down there. And we kind of just made it smaller. My middle mouse button is dying again. Something else that you might use is the loop cut. And this is going to make an equal cut here on our cube. As we see, we're going to cut it there. And if we edit it, let's scale it. It's going to scale it from where we cut it. Now, it kind of looks like a sand timer or a Z or a lightning, piece of lightning. You could call it that. There are a lot of things you can make just accidentally. Something else you can use is the knife tool. This is kind of like the loop cut, but you choose where it goes. So we can just cut this out. We can hit enter. As you can see, it cuts it out. Now, it's not going to look very good when I scale it. As you can see, it's going to look very different. Yeah, very different. But that is edit mode. The next mode we're going to use, let's go back to our default, escape, and then we're going to hit sculpt mode. Now, sculpt mode, there's a lot here. We're not going to go really into any of this today. But this is where you just sculpt your mesh. The paints we're going to go into another time. Let's head back into object mode. Now, if we want to delete this, let's just hit the delete button. Nothing's there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hit add in the top left corner, and then we're going to choose whatever we want to add next. So we have a plane, a cube, a circle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, torus, grid, and monkey. Yes, there is a monkey here. We can scale it. We can move it. It's just a monkey Blender gave us. Let's delete that. And we're going to add in a, let's do a torus. A torus is really cool because when you go hit the bottom left corner, you can go to add torus, and you can change it around. You can make the major smaller, of course, using meters. You make the minor radius bigger or smaller, of course, using meters. We kind of have like, I don't know, a ring. You could probably make this a ring. Probably make it a little bit smaller. You can have a ring. You can make the diamond and stuff. Once you get into coloring and stuff, you can make it yellow or brown for copper or whatever you want to use for your mesh. So that's how we add in new stuff. Or you can also go into object. And there's a bunch of stuff here. We're not really going to go into this today, but it has a lot to do. You could do selection to cursor. Hang on. Object. We could do mirror, X global. And then you could change some stuff up here. I'm not going to do anything there, though. You could also do select all, and it's going to select all. You could also just, highlight everything, or hit Control A. No, Control A doesn't work on here. Didn't know that actually, because I never used it. But you can also do select none. So if you're selecting everything, or you're selecting stuff you don't want to, just go over here and select none. You can also do view the cameras, activate camera. If you hit activate camera, it's going to take you into the view of the camera. As you can see, this is what's going to show up when you export your render or animation. So if we hit an animation, we hit start with the spacebar, and we have something animating. As you can see, stuff is moving down here. This is what's going to show onto the camera. When you're starting, it's going to have your FPS here on the side. And as you can see, it says right here, we're in the camera perspective. Right now, we are going to do view, and we're just going to go to normal. I'm just going to hit 4 or something like that. Yeah, here we go. Let's get rid of that. You can hit the camera button on the side. You can also go into the camera mode here on the left side. Something else you can do is you can go here. You can move this around here with the hand on the side. I hope you learned something in this video about Blender. Next video, we're going to get into modifiers and all this stuff here on the right, and what each one will do when modeling.